Be fearless, do what you want to do. Don't hold back.
Today, I am really pleased to say I have someone that I've known for a very long time, for many decades actually. I have known her, but I haven't known her. She lives quite a ways from here. She's an author, she's a consultant, and she's also a coach. Karen Hill is someone that most academics in Tokyo know of her, and you're probably one of them. So without any further ado, let's talk with Karen. Karen, welcome.
Thank you and good morning. And I'll have to tell you, my full name is Karen Hill Anton.
What did I say? I said
Karen Hill.
Karen Hill, because we just got through talking earlier.
Right. I keep I'd say adopted the name Anton, my husband's name, in solidarity with my children.
Right.
And they all have the last name Anton.
I really know your history. I know most of it, but I want you to tell the audience, where were you born?
In New York City.
Okay.
I was born in Washington Heights, which is just 5 blocks north of Harlem. So very often, people write something about me or speak about me will introduce me as coming from Harlem, but I never lived in Harlem. But of course, I know it and live very near it. But I grew up in the Washington Heights section of New York City.
And you stayed there until what age?
Until I left the United States for the first time when I was 19 years old.
Okay, all right, so good. Do you have siblings?
I had, unfortunately, both my brother, who was a year older, and my sister, who was a year younger, have both died, and quite young. My brother in his 30s and my sister in her 40s.
Oh my goodness, and both were living in the States at the time?
And they were both living in New York City.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So tell me, what type of child were you? What about mom and dad? How are they doing?
Yeah, not doing at all. They have also both passed away. And my father married when he was already quite old. He was 50 years old when I was born.
Okay.
So, and my mother was quite young. But my father died 50 years ago in September this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were really close to your dad?
I was very close to my father. My father raised me. My mother was institutionalized, so I would say, from the time I was about a year old until I was a full-grown adult, my father raised my brother, my sister, and me.
So you never knew your mother?
I never knew her. I would say personally, she never raised me. I would visit her, and my father would take us to visit when she was in institutions, but I never knew. I never had a relationship with her as mother-daughter. I've written about this really quite, well, I wouldn't say extensively, but I write about this in my memoir, and
right.
So I won't go into too much detail.
Okay, because you don't want to spoil it for the people that are going to be reading.
Yeah,
I wish you brought the book, but I'm sorry I don't have a copy with me. But it's called, let me give the title, it's called A View from Breast Pocket Mountain.
That's correct.
Am I right?
That's correct.
So you said, look at that. You said, don't get it wrong now, guys.
Hey, people do, and I forgive them.
How'd you come up with that name, Breast Pocket?
Right, because breast pocket comes from the name Futokoro-yama, which was our first home in Japan, the farmhouse. And it's a place in Shizuoka, and it's where we first lived when we came to Japan. Well, after living in the dojo for 1 year, but that was our first home. And it's really a translation of Futokoro, which is this area in a kimono. Right. Is called the Futokoro, and Yama is a mountain, and that's the name of the mountain, Futokoro-yama. And yeah, the title just came to me because so much, was about reflection. And that time, I spent at Futokoro-yama, which was about 7 years, really isolated, very removed area in Japan. So there, I had a lot of time to think, reflect.
You had a lot.
Yeah, about my life, because there wasn't much going on in terms of any kind of social life.
That's
I
right.
mean, I wouldn't say much. There was nothing going on in terms of social life. You know, I was just
Well, let's
living.
get back to your childhood.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure.
growing up in New York, what type of child were you? Were you more academic or were you more sports-minded?
Cut to the chase, I was never sports-minded.
So let's get that out
Yeah,
the way.
no, never. I've never played any sports in my life. I'm on record as saying I've never seen a baseball game.
Wait,
Yeah.
now wait, you're the middle child, so you guys were real tight.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
So were
very
they
close.
active? Were they really?
My brother was into sports, as I recall, but to me that was something in the background. That was something Johnny did.
What about your sister?
No, I don't remember her doing sports.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I was in junior high school, I remember, and I think it was from starting in the 7th grade, we were told we could be in sports, and for women, for girls, it was volleyball, or you could take dance, and I opted for dance, and
That's true.
yeah.
Those are the days. That's true.
Yeah,
In those
and-
days, you really home ec. Home ec was not an activity, but that's
Yeah,
something
right.
they really
but
pushed
for the
women
sports
to.
activity, for girls in junior high school, it was volleyball or dance, and yeah, from that time I was actually introduced to dance, and I started studying modern dance.
But in elementary school, when you were in elementary school, were you reading a lot? Or did you
Okay,
have-
yeah, and yeah, to get back, to the question was, I was never really academic, but I always read a lot. Always
What kind of
read
books
a lot.
did you read?
Oh, novels and
In elementary school now.
yeah. A tree grows in Brooklyn. I don't know. I can't remember, but I just remember going to, we had a library actually very nearby, and I would walk over there, and I would, walk around and just, I would find books, depending on the covers or whatever. I would just choose books and read them.
It's really not publicized a lot about men raising their children, particularly black men. That's really not publicized. Did you have any other female around you that were helping to?
My grandmother lived in Brooklyn, but she didn't help raise us. But
Is that your father's mother? Or
my mother's mother.
Your mother's mother,
Yeah,
okay.
my mother's mother, and she was Jamaican. And we would go to her house sometimes. But she died when I was 9 years old, and yeah.
But were you close with her? I mean, she
Yeah.
she provided some
Yeah,
guidance.
she did. I mean, we always loved going to our grandmother's house because she'd make peas and rice, and this, we'd have kinds of foods that we didn't have at home because my father cooked mostly Southern food. He was from Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we always enjoyed that.
Did you ever travel in the States at all? Did he ever take you to Mississippi?
He did take us to Mississippi. My
How old
father,
were you when that
yeah,
happened?
I was very young. He took us to Mississippi.
Did you have any impressions of what it was like?
It's, of course, it was so long ago, but I can tell you, I remember he took us to one of his sister's houses, and I guess it was kind of a farm.
He was
And
what? One of how many?
Like
Himself.
10 or 11 or something.
Of his siblings?
Yeah.
And he was number which one? do
Yeah,
you know?
I don't remember which number he was. He wasn't the eldest, as I recall.
Okay.
And and because, as I said, he was quite old when he married. So many had passed away by the time I would have remembered any of them. But I remember in Mississippi just that there were chickens in the yard, like running around, and we were city kids. Never
seen a chicken.
You've never seen a chicken, let alone running around, And I remember my brother. There was an outhouse. There was, wasn't an inside toilet. And as I recall, he refused to go to the toilet the entire time we were there. I don't know how long we were there, but that was a memory. Yeah.
And you only went once?
Well, yeah, only once. Yeah.
One time.
Yeah. Actually, my youngest daughter and her husband took a trip through the South and went to Mississippi and to Yazoo City, which is where my father was from, and looked up some records and found the property and the area where he lived, et cetera. But it was nothing was left there. Of
You
the
never
Hill
went back
family.
again after that one time your father
No,
took
no,
you?
no, no, no.
Okay, no.
Yeah, I was never particularly interested in going to Mississippi, but I mean, now I would go, if I
Just
had
out
the
of curiosity,
opportunity.
right.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
So you went from elementary school to junior high school, then you decided, okay, I'm gonna take dance. Did you really start to flourish in dance? You enjoyed it?
Yeah, well, the flourish, I did well. I was in performances, throughout high school, and I was studying, at the Martha Graham School in New York City, the Martha Graham School of Contemporary Dance, and won a scholarship after high school to attend the Martha Graham School. I tried out for Juilliard and did not get in.
That's really hard. Too.
Yeah,
Gee,
no,
that's
it
no
was very
joke.
hard. Yeah.
That's no
very
joke.
hard.
So then, where did it end up through junior high school to high school? How'd your interest change?
I would say, in high school, and I write about this also in the memoir, during the last year of high school, they introduced art history for the first time.
You had not had art.
We had
Yeah, I mean,
art,
but it wasn't
just
been
drawing
enough.
and things like that, but art history. And this was just the most wonderful experience of my high school years. And I also write about this in the memoir. The teacher, a man named William Spilka, and of course, now I realize he was pretty young at the time, probably still in his 20s, introduced the world of art, of fine art, classical works, going back to Greek times, and learning about Greek architecture and columns, Corinthian, Doric, Ionic. I forget what they were called. All of the Impressionists, painters from Rembrandt on. And before, just the entire world of art and the institutions where these famous works were, the Louvre, of course, the Prado, etc. And many of these works were in New York City at the Metropolitan, and at the Modern Art, and this was a bus ride away, a subway ride away for us. And at that time, I can't remember if the museums were free or if they cost a dime, but there was nothing. So just to go all the time, and just immerse myself in this art. And this teacher really gave us the feeling. I mean, this is all working class kids, but I felt he didn't put any space or distance between the world of great art and these, Black, Jewish, from Greek families, Puerto Rican kids, working class families, and this world of great art, and just made it feel like it's accessible. And I always felt like he really thought that we would one day see these great works, and I did.
You did?
Yeah.
I'm sure many of the students did.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me, Karen, you being a teacher, it's so important how enthusiastic the teachers are as to how the kids will respond. And you remembered his name after all those years, and how many teachers' names you remember?
Yeah, not many, not many.
Isn't that interesting?
And I have to tell you, I actually got in touch with him about a year ago.
How's he doing?
Yes. He's 90 years old. He's 90 years old, and I wrote to him I had to do some sleuthing, but I found him and just told him what a great impression he'd made on me and the impact he'd had on my life, and that I mentioned him in my memoir. And he was so glad to hear from me. Unfortunately, his wife had died just the week before.
It
was not the best time. But he was thrilled and told me all of the things he'd been doing in the interim.
Did he remember? Did he remember you?
I don't. I didn't ask if
That's right, because as a teacher, you know how you feel.
Yeah, he said,
you're teaching so many people.
So many people, and it's so many years later. So I didn't put him on the spot with that. But he was really happy that I'd made contact.
That is so beautiful. I think it's so important, the people that come through our lives,
and
the people we impress. So to me, it's something that I really take pride and pleasure in doing.
Yeah.
Because I remember the one or two teachers that impressed me.
Right. But and you want to show them gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean that's I just feel. I want you to know it wasn't for nothing or whatever. You know what I mean?
You had
a real impact, a serious and I think positive impact on one young woman's life.
So you graduated from high school. What did you major in high school?
Well, in high school, you don't have a major. You just
we did.
Oh no.
Sure
You could be in an you could be in.
In your high school, then I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a general academic or commercial course, and I was in the academic course. And so you're taking history and some mathematics, some science courses. I took Latin in high school. Yeah, was one of the few subjects.
But you weren't Catholic, are you?
No.
Okay, because that's the only place you'd be able to use it.
Yeah, no. I was, I don't know if I was a dreamer or what, but for some reason I was thinking, I might go into medicine or something. I tell you, I have no idea where this came from. Because it's the last thing I would ever do. It was actually the last thing I would do or would want to do. So, but some reason I thought, Latin would be useful. And actually, over the years, I have found that is, and as a writer, just knowing the root of words and being able to know the meaning of a word just by its Latin roots, etc.
Well, obviously it worked for you because your book, and I'm assuming you had it come out maybe 2019. I'm assuming.
The memoir is 2020.
2020, because you've gotten 3 awards, prestigious awards since then, and I've even heard this. They said for a book that has, I think it's 600 and something pages. Or 242 or 2.
Yeah, what is it about 300 pages?
300 pages.
Yeah.
But the comment that went with that was that it has 300 pages, but it reads like 100. Because the words are so well crafted.
Yeah.
And I said, now that is difficult to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I was telling you the story about my son and I going across country. And I told him to watch commercials. The reason why is because they have to do in 30 seconds. What people do, they have to get you in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So your book is doing the same thing.
Right.
You've been able to condense it, make it feel so enjoyable, Stephen King style, so enjoyable to read that you're caught to it, and you finish it, and it feels like that was just 100 pages.
I know a lot of people say, their only complaint is they wish it was longer.
But isn't that good?
Yeah,
when
it's great to hear. Yeah, it is great to hear. But I really had to keep it somewhat compact. I mean, if you read Obama's last memoir, it was like 700 pages or something like that. Right. And he can do it, and it'll still be commercially viable.
But I had it on. That's true because he has the name. Come on.
Yeah, you can do it. But I was advised, do not go over 300 pages. Do not go over 85,000 words. And it's 86,000 words. Yeah, no, they. But
you did a good job, obviously,
to
get those awards. My goodness. So tell me this, Karen. So you decide to leave. What brought you up to the point to where you left at 19?
Yeah.
So you're not in college now.
Yeah, no, I wasn't in college. I was working. I had a full-time job, and I was studying dance. Every day I was going to the Martha Graham School, and also at the Metropolitan Opera Ballet, and at the New School, which is also a modern dance school. I was basically dancing every day, but I wasn't good enough. I mean, I can say that, and I think my dreams of being in the Martha Graham Company, that just wasn't going to happen, and I'm not I'm not blaming anyone, even myself. I mean, because I started relatively late. I was already a teenager, and for a dancer, that is somewhat late. But also, and I openly admit this, I didn't have what it takes to be a professional dancer. I can tell you that, and especially in New York City. Highly competitive. People, dancers are highly trained and from an early age, and they're really dedicated. They're devoted. They're ready to spill their blood, and I wasn't, and I knew it. And I knew it, and it wasn't with regret, but I realized, the world of professional dance is not for me. Yeah.
19, you'd been working, and you decide, okay, I've had about enough of New York. Let me go to Europe. What made you decide to go to Europe?
Yeah, I mean, well, one impetus was to see the great works that I learned about in high school.
So the art teacher really did encourage.
Really, I was kind of drawn originally towards that. But once I was in Europe, and I did go to the Louvre and the British Museum and Prado and all of those things, but I was so fascinated. I mean, I truly fascinated just by the experience of going abroad for the first time.
By yourself?
By myself, yeah. It was the first time being in an airplane. I didn't know anything, basically. I didn't speak any foreign languages. But yeah, I was up to do it. And I just discovered an entire world, is what I found. And I was really fascinated with the people, how they lived, how they, decorated their houses, what they ate.
What was the first moment that you came across that when you started thinking? Because I know you're going through, you're just seeing. When did it become really personal?
I think probably in Denmark.
What happened?
Yeah. I made good friends I have to this day. In fact, who I was just visiting a week ago in Copenhagen. There are different attitudes, towards life, towards living, towards their work, their relationships. Just everything was just so different, and it wasn't as if it was so much as it was something better or it was good. But it was a different in a way that I found attractive, clearly attractive, because I was really drawn to the culture. Yeah, especially Denmark. I first went to Britain and then France and Spain. I was in Morocco for a short time. I went through Germany, but I think.
Did you know people at each stop?
No, I didn't. No. I was hitchhiking.
In those days, you could.
I could. A woman alone.
Well, they didn't have all those. They didn't have all the scare tactics they started to put up later.
Yeah, well, some of those tactics are not scary, and I can tell you, if my daughters, any of the three of them, had just said when they were 19 or 20 that they were going to Europe and hitchhiking on their own, I would lie down on the tarmac and prevent it.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, this is not going to happen.
But then again, like I said,
yeah.
Also, information didn't travel as fast then.
Yeah, that's true.
So everyone's hearing these horror stories.
Yeah.
That quick.
But Lance, there is reality to things.
Oh,
it's not as safe. Yeah, it's
I agree.
not
No,
as safe.
I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
But you're encouraging. I saw one comedian once talking about what's happening in the schools in the States when these guys come in and hurt everybody, right? And he said, they are actually talking to one of the kids that are doing it when they're telling them about it.
Yeah, oh. Yeah,
that's the point I'm
making.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't hear about stuff so late.
Yeah, that's true.
It took us 2 weeks to get a letter from across the country. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
And you couldn't, and if you couldn't write well, you couldn't even read it. so come on. But nowadays, everything's so instant. I mean, we can see it progressively getting quicker, more and more information getting out, and now we're saturated with it.
This is true.
We're completely saturated to where whatever happens on this planet, anywhere, we know too soon.
Right. Very, very soon.
That's very, very daunting. Because we were the last, no we weren't, I think it's our kids, the Generation X generation, Z or whatever.
I haven't figured it out.
Baby boomers.
Yeah.
And baby boomers, we were really solid in it. And we remember dial TVs and telephones. Some of us, if we went far enough in the country, knew you could do this with the telephones. Could do that. But those, because our grandparents had them.
Right.
But we most definitely had our phones, and we're happy when it became push button phones. We had to remember all of our combinations to all of our locks in school. We had to remember all of our friends' phone numbers.
I could, up until very recently, I could probably rattle off 100 phone numbers. Until recently. Now, of course, I have an iPhone like everyone else, and it
well, why did you decide to just keep it in and do it?
And it wasn't like, I want to memorize this or whatever. I would see a number, hear a number, and
it was there.
Yeah, and I could,
because what we had to do anyway.
Yeah, I would just connect it with a person and a name. Yeah. because I could do it. I could not do it now.
How long did you stay in Europe?
Then it was just shy of a year that first time.
So you'd saved up to do this trip.
I had saved up.
Did you start working? Did you work on the way while you were there as well?
No,
funds, or just?
you know, I wouldn't say working so much as, you know, I would do some part-time job somewhere. We know anything that showed up. I modeled at some points. I worked in a jazz club in Copenhagen, where Dexter Gordon played every night. Yeah. But
so of course you met him and you knew him. Yeah, you met him. Yeah, he was there every night.
yeah, I was there every night. But you know, it was such a simple life. You know, I was sleeping in people's, you know, homes, on couches, you know, in tents, or, you know, in hostels, in the cheapest hotels. You know, I was very young. This is not how I travel now, I assure you. But yeah, so it wasn't like it was a big expense. And of course, you know, hitchhiking or traveling, you know, second or third class on a train, that was not expensive. Yeah.
So how did it bring you back to the States? You came back to the States, I'm assuming.
I did come back. Yeah, I don't know if, you know, if I ran out of money probably, but just, you know, I knew, I felt that, you know, I knew when it was time to come back, and I did. But just, I don't know, a few months later, I went back to Europe, just for a short time, to visit a friend in Holland, and yeah, I stayed with him and his family. And then I went, let's see, then I went back again in '68, and that was the longest time I stayed in Europe, because I was there from '68 to 70, 71, and that's when my eldest daughter was born in Denmark.
Is that where did you meet your husband in Denmark?
I was not married.
Okay.
I was not married to my first daughter's father.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
And when we met in New York City, and I pretty much brought him to Europe. He'd never been, you know, I don't know, we were living this kind of almost wild life in New York City. It was the '60s, marginally or whatever. And we went out to San Francisco at the height of the, you know, the
hippie craze.
Hippie
Yes,
thing. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
And then, you know, I really had enough, and I said, you know, let's go to Europe, and you know, he agreed, and that's what we did. But we split up in Spain. Yeah.
Then how did you get? I mean, from Europe, I'm just trying to get you
to
here. How'd you get here?
It's so complicated.
Is it really complicated?
Well, I actually, when I write about it, I think I've made it uncomplicated, but
in reality, it
but
really
yeah,
is.
but it's complex, is what I would say. But I think, you know, in the memoir, I was able to write about it and to tell it as a story.
Well, then let's leave that part. Let's say that part and just say, when did you come to Japan?
I came to Japan 1975, and with my husband, who I would say my current husband, my only husband, to whom I'm married almost 50 years now.
The only person you ever married.
The only person I ever married. We left the United States in June or July '74, and we spent 1 year traveling here. First, touring all of Western Europe in a Volkswagen Bug that we bought at the used car market in Amsterdam, and then driving straight across northern Italy, the former Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan.
Did you have your daughter with you?
And we had our daughter with her, and she was 5 years old. She was 5 years old, sleeping on the back seat of a Volkswagen.
That's why she's not here.
Yeah, it might be.
She's seen the world.
Yeah, she might have had enough. Yeah.
Travel less. She said, no, I can't. No.
Right. Anyway, we sold our Volkswagen in Kabul, and then traveled using public transportation through Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Thailand. So we were basically on the road for 1 year before arriving in Japan on June 1st, 1975.
I mean, Kieran, tell me this. How were the foods as you went through? Do you remember that? The different
I mean, it was
ethnic
so
foods
many
you
different.
tasted. And
One thing first I'll tell you, because we were traveling really, bottom dollar, and also my husband at the time was very much involved in macrobiotics and vegetarianism. So we cooked all our own food, almost the entire way. We lived on brown rice and lentils, and we also, had some Japanese foods, so like wakame and nori, things that are non-perishable, soba, and things like that. Before my husband had studied Japanese cooking. Yeah.
See, my beliefs are true. I'm
Yeah,
telling you. Back then, no, come on.
Yeah, no, really. He's the first one who introduced me. Gave me my first unappreciated taste of sushi. Yeah.
That had to be hard for you at the beginning.
In the beginning, I was saying, he was
Raw
telling me how
fish.
great it was, and I was saying, no, I'm not if I'm going for this. But what can I say? It's like, of course, I love sushi. But just to backtrack a little bit, my husband's an old friend. We've been friends since we were 16 years old. Yeah.
So he's from New York as well?
Yeah, he's from New York City. He's from Greenwich Village. I'm from Washington Heights. So opposite ends of the city. Absolute opposite ends.
You knew him since he was 16 years old?
I knew him since he was 16 years old. To go, another little tidbit, I was at his wedding.
He was married once before.
He was married once before, and I was part of the groom's party because we were such good friends. No, and then he got married really young, and I had told him, don't do it.
Was he 20 or what?
No, he was 20 or 21, so he was very young.
Yes.
And I'd met his future wife and liked her and everything. I just didn't think they were a good. Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem to be a match, but I was so young myself. I was like 18 or 19.
But you still had those senses,
Yeah, it was something I just had the sense, and just don't do it. But he did. I went to the wedding, etc. But we're really very old friends. Really, really old.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know.
Anyway,
you don't talk about that in your book, do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. No, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping we were getting something here that you don't have in the book. Right.
Well, the Mississippi, I think that's not in the book.
Mississippi isn't in the book.
Yeah, no, I don't mention
Okay.
that my father took us to Mississippi.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, and it was Bill was invited to study in Japan. So
That's what brought you here.
Yeah, and that's what brought us
Okay,
here.
I thought maybe. Okay.
Yeah, and so and instead of it coming directly, we decided to take the long route. And he had like an open invitation, and they said whenever you come, your scholarship will begin at that time. So and we took 1 year.
And you never went back?
Never went back to live.
So you never stayed outside of Japan more than a month or so?
No, longer than that. I stayed with, let's see, more recently, just when my daughter son was born in Los Angeles.
But that's the only time.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, basically, when you
came,
came
I
here,
never went back to live.
Because people that come and then they stay here for 2 or 3 years, then they go somewhere else for 3 years, then they come back and say, I've been to Japan for. No, you weren't.
Yeah. No.
So you said,
this is continuously 48 years now.
You're 1 year short of me.
Oh, okay.
I've been here 49 years. Next year will be 50 years I've been in Japan. I came here in '74 in the Air Force.
Oh, right in the Air Force. My brother was in the Air Force.
Was he?
Yeah, he was stationed in Turkey. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, but you said your brother and sister passed away.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, at a young age too. Okay, so you came here. You've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, before I end the podcast, because we're not going to go into this, I don't want you to expose too much of your book.
Okay.
I really appreciate the time you've given me. But before we end, I always ask this question of my guest.
Mm-hmm.
If you could magically go back in time, knowing what you know now, and give the younger Karen some advice, what advice would you give her, and how old would you be? Well,
I would be at that age of my younger body when I was a dancer. And and just the peak of health. So let's say 21 or something like that. But advice, I think I've almost followed my own advice, which is be fearless. You know, do what you want to do. Don't hold back. The world is there for you. It's full of great experiences and wonderful people. You'll have a chance to meet them all. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. But you see, I haven't hesitated, so I don't know if I would tell her something differently. Oh, I would have said, yeah, study languages. Yeah, study languages, definitely. Yeah, learn, be good at least 2 or 3 other languages. Yeah.
Right now you're fluent in 2, English and Japanese. Well, you speak Japanese and English, and you're never going to admit it, but you have to.
No, no, I will not. You will not have. No one will ever say that Karen says she's fluent in Japanese.
But fluency, I try to always.
I
preface
function
that by
in
saying,
Japanese.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And that is fluent.
Yeah, I live in
You know, 'cause
Japanese.
everyone's
Yeah,
but I think we
life.
have such a high expectations
Yeah.
of what we think fluency is. I know.
Because it's such a beautiful language. I would like to be able to give lectures, you know, well in Japanese, and I've done it, but it was such a hard experience that I won't do it again. And yeah, just to to speak with real ease, and beautifully. I would absolutely love that. Yeah.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
it's been enjoyable.
I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all unknown, so continue to reach for the stars.
Because you're too blessed to be stressed.